I want to ask you something. When was the last time you opened Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube and closed it feeling better about your life than when you opened it? Now, I'm not talking inspired or motivated. I actually mean better, like something in you felt better. Look, if you're struggling to remember, that's not a coincidence. There is a multi-trillion-dollar economy, and I mean that literally, built on one very specific emotion, not happiness, not excitement. It's the feeling that you are not enough, not thin enough, not wealthy enough, not successful enough. And the thing that took me a very long time to really understand, the thing that I want to talk to you about today, is that this feeling is not just a side effect, it's the actual whole product. This is the dissatisfaction economy. And once you see how it works, it's very hard to unsee. The dissatisfaction economy runs on 4 pillars, and I want to talk through each one today because once you can name them, you start seeing them pretty much everywhere. So, pillar 1 is manufactured comparison. For the vast majority of history, at least human history, you compared yourself to maybe 150 people, your village, your community, and the people you could physically see. And that was already hard, as humans have always dealt with envy, status anxiety, and with just the feeling of falling behind. Now, that part itself is not new. What is new is the scale. Today, your brain is processing comparison signals from thousands of people every single day. People that you've never met and people living lives that have been, just curated, filtered, and optimized for maximum impact. There is a researcher named Robin Dunbar, and he's the one who actually came up with the 150 number. He argues that our brains have evolved to handle social groups of that specific size. So we're basically running 150% social software on a 1,000% network each and every day. Now, that comparison isn't natural, it's manufactured, and someone is profiting from it. Pillar 2 is the weaponization of the hedonic treadmill. I actually did a whole video on the hedonic treadmill, so I'll link it in the description for those of you that are interested. But in summary, the hedonic treadmill is the psychological phenomenon where you adapt to everything. New car, it's exciting for several months, then it's just your car. Promotion at work, it's amazing for a week, then it's your new baseline. This is just how humans work. We adapt and return to a set point. That's pretty normal. But the dissatisfaction economy has figured out a way to weaponize this. They do this by showing you the next thing before you've even finished adapting to the current thing. You could have just bought some AirPods. Great, here's a Pro Max version. Or you just hit your fitness goals. Great, but here's why that goal was wrong and this one is actually correct. Or you just got a promotion and LinkedIn is already surfacing the job title above yours. They have essentially just turned your own psychology against you. They've taken a natural human process, which is adaptation, and converted it into a perpetual purchase trigger. They've basically just made your contentment their enemy. Pillar 3 is engagement amplification. Look, the algorithm is not neutral. I want to be really clear about that. The algorithm has one job, which is to maximize engagement by increasing time on the platform, by clicks, shares, and comments. And it has learned through billions of data points that one emotion drives more engagement than any other. And that's aspiration driven by inadequacy. Show someone a life they don't have, a body they don't have, a career they haven't reached, a home they can't afford, and they stop scrolling, they stare, and they click. So the algorithm, not because anyone explicitly programmed it to be cruel, but because this is what the data told it to do, is going to actively surface content that makes you feel like you're falling short. It's not showing you what's true, it's showing you what keeps you engaged. And those are very different things. The algorithm is not your friend trying to impress you. It's a machine that discovered that your insecurity is more valuable than your contentment. And pillar 4 is the solution industrial complex. For every insecurity that the system creates, it sells you the cure. If you feel financially behind, great, here's a side hustle course. If you feel out of shape, here's a supplement stack. If you feel like your career isn't moving fast enough, here's a $3,000 coaching program. Or if you feel like you're bad with money, here's another budgeting app. So they're engineering the wound themselves, and then they're selling you the bandage. But the bandage doesn't actually heal it. Because if it did, if you actually felt complete, you'd stop buying. And a satisfied customer is a lost customer. So those are the 4 pillars. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I want to show you what this actually looks like in practice, because this is not just theory. This is well documented. In 2021, a Facebook employee named Francis Hedonic, I think I'm saying that name right, walked out of the company with thousands of pages of internal research documents. And what these documents showed was pretty nuts. So Facebook's own researchers had found that Instagram made body image worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. Their words, not mine. One internal slide actually read, "We make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls." Another internal study found that 32% of teenage girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. And here's the part that matters. They knew and they did not stop. But why would they do that? It's pretty simple, because dissatisfied users are engaged users. Engaged users see more ads. More ads means more revenue. So the business model required the harm to continue. Let's look at another example. Zillow. Zillow has turned looking at houses you can't afford into a national pastime. You know the feeling. You open it just to browse, and 40 minutes later, you're looking at $4 million homes in cities that you have never visited. Now, this is not an accident. They're algorithms specifically designed to surface aspirational properties, not realistic ones. Not here's what you can actually afford, but hey, here's what life could look like. Like, why would they do that? Because real estate agents as well as lenders pay significantly more for advertising space on their platforms, where users are actively dreaming. Now, the gap between where you are and where you wish you were is literally being monetized. Then there's the fitness industry. And I don't know what to make of this one. The US fitness industry generates approximately $40 billion in revenue annually. Over the same period that industry has grown, obesity rates in America have also gone up. Now, I want to be careful here. That's not a straight casual line. There are a lot of factors in obesity rates, so I want to be careful here. But here's what I do think is true. The fitness industry is not designed to make you fit. It's designed to keep you trying to get fit. Because a person who has achieved their goal and feels complete is no longer a customer. The business model requires the cycle of dissatisfaction, then purchase, then temporary effort, adaptation, then new dissatisfaction, and then new purchase. So if everyone who bought a gym membership actually reached their goal and felt satisfied and stopped, the industry in and of itself would collapse. The product isn't fitness. The product is the pursuit of fitness. And then there's LinkedIn. Every time you open LinkedIn, the algorithm surfaces the highlights. Someone got promoted, someone spoke at a conference, someone got hired at the place that you've always wanted to work. What the algorithm does not surface, the thousands of people who did not get promoted that quarter, the 10 startups that failed, the thousands of people who applied to that company and got rejected. What you're seeing is a curated selection of professional wins from your entire network, presented as if this is a representation of what's happening out there. There have been a lot of studies that have found that professional social media use correlates with increased career anxiety and also just overall decreased job satisfaction. Now, this is even amongst people whose careers are objectively going well. And here's the mechanism. Anxious users check the platform more often. More visits means more ad impressions, and more impressions means more revenue. So your professional anxiety is the product that they're actively cultivating. Now, I anticipate the objection here. I can almost hear it. You're smart. You know Instagram isn't real. You know LinkedIn is a highlight reel. And you've heard all of this before. So why does it all still work on us? This is the part I actually find fascinating, because the answer isn't that we're naive. It's just that we're human. And that's not a bailout. Our brain has evolved for thousands of years, and for almost all of that time, there was one reliable rule. If you could see something, it was real. You see a lion, real lion. You see your neighbor with more food than you, they actually have more food. Or you see someone in your community succeed, they actually succeeded. Our brain essentially developed a deeply ingrained shortcut. What I perceive is what's true. Now we're using that same brain to process content from people who are actively curating their lives for maximum impact. I'm talking influencers who may be using substances they don't disclose, or before and after photos that were literally taken the same day, or entrepreneurs showing revenue numbers without mentioning the debt behind them. You see, your conscious, rational mind knows this. It can name it right now. But your unconscious brain, the part that actually generates feelings, is unfortunately still running on ancient software. It sees the image, it registers it as real. Now, your intellect knows this is not true, but your nervous system doesn't get that same memo. There's also something called the availability heuristic. This is a cognitive bias identified by psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. The basic idea is this: your brain judges how common something is based on how easily examples come to mind. So if you've seen 15 luxury vacations in your feed this week, your brain begins to unconsciously calibrate. Like, this is normal, this is what people do, and if I'm not doing this, I'm behind. You're not seeing the reality of what most people experience. What you're seeing is just a selected sample that's skewed towards aspiration. And your brain is using that sample to construct its model of the world. And the last piece of this, the thing that I think explains why it's so hard to shake even when you intellectually understand it, we are almost entirely wired for relative position. You can have good health, stable income, people who love you, work that feels meaningful, and still feel like you're losing. Not because you are losing, but because you are comparing your actual life to some sort of just manufactured version of everyone else's. So in absolute terms, most people watching this are doing okay. Some of you are doing really well. But in relative terms, which is the only frame that your brain naturally operates in, the algorithm has made sure that you feel like you're at the bottom of a ladder that, quite frankly, never ends. Look, you're not weak for feeling this way. You are just being targeted by systems built specifically to exploit how your brain works. So let me put some numbers to this, because I think it helps understand the scale of what we're talking about. The global advertising industry, the business of manufacture and desire, is expected to pass $1 trillion this year. Social media companies, the platform that run the comparison engine, it's about to be roughly about 300 billion. Fitness industry globally, over 100 billion. The self-help industry, 40 billion. Career and just professional coaching, 16 billion. We are talking about trillions of dollars in industries that at a fundamental level require you to feel inadequate in order to function. And that's before we count fashion that's essentially just driven by trend anxiety, luxury goods that is driven by status anxiety, productivity tools that are driven by optimization anxiety, and cosmetics, which is basically just driven by appearance anxiety. So your dissatisfaction is one of the most valuable commodities on earth. So what do you actually do about all of this? Look, I'm not going to tell you to delete all of your apps and move to a cabin. That's not realistic, and honestly, it misses the point. The point here isn't to run away from the system. The point is to stop being unconsciously operated by it. So here's what I think actually works. First, and I know this is going to sound simple, but name what's happening in the moment. When you close an app feeling worse than when you opened it, just ask yourself 3 simple questions. What did I just see? Who profits if I feel this way right now? And is this feeling based on reality or on a curated sample designed to make me feel behind? Now, you don't have to answer this perfectly. Just asking the question itself interrupts the automatic process. It moves you from unconscious reaction to conscious response. Second, curate ruthlessly and without any kind of guilt. If an account constantly or consistently just makes you feel worse about your life, just unfollow it and cut it off. I don't care if it's someone you know. I don't care if that content is technically motivating or inspiring. Motivation that comes from manufactured inadequacy isn't real motivation. It's just anxiety wearing a productivity costume. Third, change the metric that you're measuring yourself against. The dissatisfaction economy wants you measuring yourself against other people's wealth, other people's bodies, other people's career timelines, and other people's just carefully constructed highlight reels. What if instead you measure yourself against how you felt a year ago, or whether your life reflects your actual values, or whether your needs, I'm talking real needs, not manufactured ones, are actually met. The comparison that actually matters is you versus who you were, not you versus a feed that was engineered to make you feel small. And fourth, and maybe most importantly, give yourself permission to feel satisfied. That might sound strange, but the system has spent so much energy convincing you that satisfaction is complacency and that contentment means you've given up. It's basically just convinced you that you are not supposed to feel okay, because truthfully, okay doesn't spend money. Look, feeling satisfied is not settling. In this economy, it might be the most radical thing that you can actually do. Let's wrap this up. The dissatisfaction economy is not going away. It's too profitable, too embedded, and just too well engineered. But here's what I've come to believe. The system has one real vulnerability, one thing that it absolutely could not survive. And that's people who have genuinely decided that they are enough. Not people who are trying to feel enough, not people who are working on their mindset or doing some sort of inner work. I'm talking people who have just decided, I have enough, I am enough, and I'm not available to be convinced otherwise. That's not giving up on growth. It is the most direct possible act of resistance against a system that requires your permanent dissatisfaction to function. The system works best when you are dissatisfied. So stop being dissatisfied.